All right, thank you for joining tonight for the Career Development Q&A session, the Career Advising AMA. AMA is an Ask Me Anything, and my name is Chris Miller. I am the Career Counselor for the WSU Global Campus, and hopefully in this Ask Me Anything session, I will actually be able to answer everything that's asked. I will start in kind of touch on the career development process and then dive into some questions that I've already received. And after I just hit on a few of those, and if you have any questions, let me know. Yeah, we'll get started. See if I don't think I have anything else in the beginning. Thank you again for joining. So I always start any kind of webinar I do with a brief snapshot of the career development process. And this is a decent image of it. Kind of shows this circular process that many of us go through as we contemplate career decisions and explore career options. And for our topic tonight of Ask Me Anything, we could really be at any point of this career development process. So we will see where it takes us. So some of the ones that I received just to get started. How does an academic major impact career opportunities? Which global campus majors are in demand? And so I did a little bit of looking around. For each year, they kind of update which academic majors are in demand to tell you, what the state of the job market is. And they're usually tied in with specific occupations that are in demand. And so I looked at a CNBC report from January of this year, and they discussed academic majors and occupations that are in demand. And the vast majority of them are in healthcare. But number one was computer science. Number two is health management, some kind of healthcare management area. 3 was nursing. 4 was medical technology. And then 5 through 10, there were more healthcare specific concentrations. That's not doesn't really hit on the areas of the global campus. And so I looked at a U.S. News report also from this year, and they looked at the top 25 list. The majority of them also in healthcare, others in business and technology. Number 24 specifically was accounting. So if I was forced to just give a yes or no answer, or just be forced to pick the one major that is the most in demand, technically it would be accounting. But that is based on a lot of different data and different research methodology for how they come up with this. And so I think the most important thing for me to stress as a career counselor is that it doesn't matter which degree you're pursuing to some extent. Finishing your undergraduate degree will open up opportunities that weren't there before. There are so many employers that I've met with over the years that are just looking to hire good candidates regardless of the academic background they pursue. They want someone who has finished a college degree, but they are making their decisions based on the skills of that person or those people, and also the experiences they've had. And so that works to the advantage of the global campus student, because the typical global campus student is coming in with work experience already, or some kind of life experience that's easier to market than a quote unquote traditional college student who doesn't have much to offer an employer in terms of experience. And so employer perspective is important, and employer perception. And it's one of those things you can only control to a certain degree, a very limited degree. You don't know, for the most part, what an employer is looking for. And so what it comes down to for a lot of people is branding and marketing. So how do they market their skills? How are they branding themselves via their LinkedIn page, through their resume, through their networking activities? And so does it impact career opportunities? Yes, to a certain extent, but it really varies on a case-by-case basis. If you're getting your accounting degree, you're going to have a lot of accounting opportunities. That doesn't mean you can't pivot and, decide you're going to become a plumber and join a journeyman program or some kind of an apprenticeship program. If you get your major in social sciences or humanities, it doesn't tie you to a specific occupational area, which has advantages and disadvantages that are perceivable. The important part is you need to find a way to help market your experience and your education effectively, and that is one of the things that I do with the Global Campus students. I help with that. How should Global Campus students pursue internships? Great question. Academic versus experiential. And I think the point here I'm making is that you can, as a college student in an accredited college program, you can explore an internship for the sake of experience. It doesn't have to be for academic credit. Obviously, if you're able to get academic credit at the same time, it's likely beneficial. But it's also true that academic credit is tied into tuition. So it really varies also based on the degree program that you're in and what you're looking to do. So, there are some degree areas where it's a requirement, like human development. There are the majority of business students don't have the flexibility to pursue an internship, especially ones that are coming in with a bunch of transfer credits, like Global Campus students. And that's not to say they can't pursue an internship. They just can't. Any credit that they would receive wouldn't fit into their degree program. It would be all elective. And so it's true that you could do it for credit. And if that's what you're interested in doing, you'd want to discuss it with your academic advisor first. Experiential just means you're getting an internship for work experience. It's not tied to academic credit. And so if you're solely going the experiential route, I would be the first person or one of the first people to contact to help with your internship search, and my contact information will be shared at the end. But an internship search is the same as a job search. And so you need to approach it in the same way. There's a little bit more flexibility compared to a job search if you are trying to develop your own internship, because that's an option that a lot of people don't look into, because it takes a lot of effort, a lot of legwork to kind of target a company and try to see if you can get an internship within that company when one doesn't exist. But that's a possibility. That's something that can be done. So if you're interested in a specific company and you look at their website, you don't see any information about an internship program. You look at their job offerings, they don't have anything that's relevant for a student or anything entry level. One of the strategies from a career counseling standpoint is to try to network your way into an internship. And so as a student, that's easier to do than networking your way into a paid job position, which is also not impossible. But it varies from company to company and industry to industry based on what you're able to achieve. And so it should be approached in the same way as a job search. Handshake is the platform for WSU for jobs and internships, and I will show that off a little bit down the line here. I'll just do a little quick tour of that. If you are pursuing an internship in one of the more social services, social sciences areas, the Center for Civic Engagement is a good way to find experiential learning opportunities. And so it's a good way to find potential volunteer options for you in your geographical area, wherever you live. And so this is a good option for Global Campus students too, because they will try to help you find opportunities in your area. And I'll show that website off too a little bit down the line. If you are interested in pursuing an internship and you don't even know which type of internship you would like, or you're unsure of which career area to pursue, then I would recommend starting with career assessment, and I would be the person to help you with that. And so to help you find some career internship interest based or targets based on your interests and your work preferences. which resources would you recommend for career development? And I know the question I got asked about specific text, specific books, but I also threw in a couple of other ones here. So What Color is Your Parachute is a manual put together by Richard Bowles. He's like one of the godfathers of career development work. Uh, and he's been updating and publishing What Color is Your Parachute for many, many years now. It's updated every year, usually in August. And it's really a great cradle to grave career development handbook that is going to walk you through the career assessment piece. There's a really in-depth career assessment in there. It has, kind of explains what the market's like for job hunters, the best and worst ways to look for jobs. It talks about how Google is your new resume. It has interviewing and salary negotiation tips. It talks about dealing with potential barriers. And there's even a part about starting your own business. So it's a great all-around resource for career development. It's number one on my list, in my opinion. I put the strong interest inventory there. It is the career assessment, interest assessment that I recommend the most for students interested in career exploration based on their interests and work preferences. It's available to WSU students for $15. For anyone who's interested, unless they know they want to do it right away, I offer them a free career assessment that is based on the same methodology and framework, and just to see if they find that career assessment to be a meaningful experience. And then if that is, then I highly recommend the strong interest inventory to really explore careers, to start that career exploration and research process. And after that, I recommend utilizing the Occupational Outlook Handbook to further that research. And I'll show that off briefly also. Showing Our True Colors by Mary Sisson is another good book for, it's in the Myers-Briggs area, the work personality area. About really figuring out how your personality and your work preferences and communication preferences and how you are energized by the inside world, yourself, and the outside world, and how that all fits into career development. That is an excellent book too. And specifically for networking, I found that Highly Effective Networking is a really good resource. And that's should be available on Amazon, like What Color is Your Parachute, and also Showing Our True Colors. What Color is Your Parachute is usually available for around $10, and I know they have tablet versions too. And then Showing Our True Colors and Highly Effective Networking, I think, are also around the $10 to $15 range. So not too expensive for a pretty effective career resource. Also, the resume coloring book. I don't think I had that on my list here or on the website list, but for people interested in developing a resume from the ground up, or for looking for suggestions for resume content development and how to format an effective resume, the resume coloring book is a great resource too, and I will show you where that is also. How should global campus students go about networking? And one of the main ways that I recommend any student to go about networking is to try to arrange informational interviews with professionals who are doing the types of work that interest them. Informational interviews are just basically conversations you arrange with people who have knowledge and experience in the professions that you wish to investigate. It's used by, experienced professionals who are just researching advancement opportunities in their careers, as well as people who are looking for entry-level work, fresh out of college, or career changers, or especially for students investigating career options. It'll help you gain insight and information from personal accounts of a work setting, knowledge and skill requirements in order to get started, and also current trends in the field. Help you develop your networking skills and introduce yourself to people in the profession. Help you identify how to prepare yourself and work toward a particular goal increase motivation in working toward that goal, and also build confidence and experience in interacting with professionals in your industry. And so if you have more questions about how to go about setting up an informational interview and what types of questions to ask, I am your resource for that too. But generally, the way to go about it is to, LinkedIn is usually the best way to start. I get approached personally, I get LinkedIn messages, a handful a year for people requesting informational interviews. And it's just a common practice for someone who's really trying to establish themselves and also develop their networking skills. So there's a WSU Global Campus LinkedIn page. There's a WSU Alumni Association LinkedIn page. You can, target specific companies on LinkedIn if you know where you want to work, and try to reach out to decision makers, managers, HR professionals to gather information about how you can best prepare to attempt to get employment with that company. There are also online networking events. Global Connections has events all throughout the academic year, and there is often a networking component to some of them. Handshake, I will show you, I mentioned before, is the job and internship posting board for the university system, and for hundreds of universities throughout the nation. And there are, for Global Campus students, you can search for virtual events on there. And they have information sessions, they have networking events also to help you find contacts to kind of gather more information about getting started with a specific industry. I do a blog also, a Global Campus Career blog, and I try to post information about relevant events for Global Campus students, so networking events, career fairs, education fairs, things like these webinars. I try to post information, internships, anything that is relevant to, could be potentially relevant to a Global Campus student. Also, the WSU Alumni Association over the past few years has done a lot of online networking events. There weren't as many this year, so I don't know if they are phasing them out or not, but I will show you how to search the Alumni Association for events also. How should Global Campus students start a graduate school search? Great question. The resource that I recommend students starting with, it's called the Peterson's Guide, and it's just petersons.com. And it used to be a physical book that, like most things, has moved to a website that just houses all hundreds, thousands of academic programs. So graduate programs at the master's level, at the PhD level, at the professional level, certificate level. The Peterson's Guide is really the best place to start. For people that are specifically targeting online programs, my recommendation is always to at least start with, the state schools that are regionally accredited. So of course, Washington State University is your first start, is a starting place. But we may not offer the program that you're looking for. So, other schools like Oregon State, Arizona State, Penn State, Colorado State, Utah State, Boise State, the state regionally accredited schools that are offering online programs. Those are really good places to start. So Peterson's Guide will have some of that, but not all of that. It's not exhaustive. And I do have other resources too. So contact me if you are looking for other resources for your graduate school search. So contact your prospective programs, develop a list of targets, ask questions. So, what kind of questions? Which degrees are accepted or preferred for admission? That's a big one. I know that's a big one for social sciences and humanities students. There's a concern about their interdisciplinary general studies degree being acceptable for specific programs. So you'll want to contact these programs as soon as possible if you know you're even potentially interested in pursuing that graduate program down the line. What types of, are there any specific companies or internships that help prepare students for admission? So, are there any regional companies for that school that they already have partnerships with that you can target? they know that these internships help prepare you for this specific academic program. What types of careers are recent grads involved in? That's one of those questions that some programs will be able to answer and some won't. Graduate alumni tracking varies a lot from university to university, and it's usually better at the graduate level. At the undergraduate level, there are usually too many grads to keep to keep track of. But I know the graduate programs make a solid effort of attempting to track their grads and see where they're at. What student services are available to students as graduate students? Are there any placement services? So if you have a practicum or internship in your specific program, are there placement services? That's a question. Obviously, there will be support for you to find things like that, but are there, a lot of medical programs will have placement services built in to a program. The faculty, who are the faculty? Do they work only for that school? Do they work for other schools? What are their research interests? And I can tell you, firsthand knowledge, knowing the research interests, if that's relevant to your graduate program, knowing those ahead of time of the people that are doing research at that university is very helpful for you to know as an applicant, so you can share, ideally share similar interests, because they're going to want people in their program that can help them with their research. Common admission parts for a graduate program would be transcripts. So your undergraduate transcripts, test scores for like the GRE or the LSATs or something like that are generally a part of an admissions package. A general application, there's usually general application. Letters of interest, so some kind of letter that you declare your reason for applying to the program. They're usually required recommendations, letters of recommendation, often a resume, and then depending on that specific graduate program, there could be an interview. That's usually something more at the PhD level, the doctoral level. But those are some parts of a graduate school search. So before I actually get to the next part, I did want to show you some of the resources that I referred to. So this is the new homepage, and the Global Campus blog that I mentioned. The career blog is now a part of this new main blogging section. So on the left-hand menu, I scroll down to select Global Campus blog, and it has several different categories here. But on the right-hand side, you can look at the categories that you're interested in: awards, careers, faculty, news. So careers is where I post my information. I just started posting this week. We just moved over. So this is where all my new blog posts will be. But the top one is just about, this webinar that we're in right now. This is where I will post blog relevant, event relevant information for Global Campus students. So career fairs, online education fairs, online networking events, internship opportunities, and things like that. This is where I will do it. So again, Global Campus blog, and then in that career category there. The Academic Success and Career Center is the Academic Advising and Career Center for the WSU Pullman community, and they house a lot of resources there that are available to and highly relevant to Global Campus students. So Career Services section on the left-hand menu. I didn't write down on the PowerPoint, but the resume coloring book is the resume resource I recommend as a highly recommended resource. And then the other one, of course, was Handshake, which is the internship and job posting site for the university. And when you sign into Handshake, it looks something like this. I don't have a student view, so I can't show you exactly, but it has information like this. And then the left-hand menu, I can't go into the events because some of them aren't approved on the administrator view. So on that, under the schedule, that events tab is where you will find virtual career events. So some of those will be networking events. Some of those will be information sessions. And then jobs, here to search jobs and internships. And it has this filtering section up top, which is really important. So you can search based on, your academic major if you want to. More importantly, probably location, employment type. So internship, full-time, part-time. That's probably under job type. Yeah, internship. So currently 7,900 job listings and 1,800 internship listings, which is pretty good. Pretty good. So that's what Handshake looks like. The Center for Civic Engagement, cce.wsu.edu. I mentioned also in that internship part, if you're looking just to get some experiential learning opportunities, to think about the volunteer route if that's relevant for your degree program. So under the Students tab on the left-hand menu, there's something, a section specifically for global campus students, and it says Cybercubes there. So that's something you can explore also. Under the resource referral, I talked about the Occupational Outlook Handbook. So if you are researching careers of interest, this is the best starting place for researching careers, and I'll show off just briefly what it does, what types of information it has here. And I will pick a random letter of the alphabet, the A through Z index here. And W takes me to all these different job types, job clusters, and specific occupational titles. So let's see. Okay. What sounds good? We do have technical writers, so we'll do technical writers here. So for each occupation that you're researching, there's just a general summary of each of these sections, but it'll break down what these people do for their job, what are the duties. They determine the needs of users of technical documentation, study product samples, and talk with product designers and developers, and so on and so forth. What is the work environment like? Most of them work in offices, routinely work with engineers and other technology experts, et cetera, et cetera. How to become one, education that is required, a bachelor's degree in journalism, English, or communications. What the pay is like, so salary range for technical writers. Very important information for career researching. What the outlook is like, so this is where the Occupational Outlook Handbook gets its title. So employment of technical writers is projected to grow 11% through 2026, which is a little bit faster than the average. So the idea here is that for the next 7 years, it should be a fairly stable career area and offer more career opportunities than others might that were growing at the average or below the average. There's state statistics. So this would link out to the Occupational Employment Statistics Program. Similar occupations is very good if you're researching something and you find that it doesn't pay enough for you, or there's too much education required, or you're interested in more education, then it can be a really good resource to look at other similar occupations. And then more info is really good for someone interested in the networking aspect. So which professional associations are relevant for this career area? You can check these out and start connecting with people within those associations. And then you can find those associations on LinkedIn as well and try to find people within those associations to network with. And then lastly, the Alumni Association. Under Connect, so this is alumni.wsu.edu. Under the Career and Business Support section, it'll link to Handshake and the Resume Coloring Book and LinkedIn. And when there are scheduled career events, they would be just on the event calendar under events. Oh, it's going to make me drop down? No. Okay. So this is where you'd find any scheduled career events. I don't think there are any on right now since semester's coming to a close. So those are the questions I received ahead of time to kind of help guide me in this this AMA, this Ask Me Anything. And now I am available for you. Thank you so much for attending, first of all. Second of all, I am available to answer any questions that you might have relevant to career development. What I say is the most flexible major at WSU. It's definitely a tie between social sciences and humanities because those two academic majors are built upon are built upon the flexibility of concentration. So utilizing a transfer student's credits in the best way possible. So that obviously has a lot of perceivable financial advantages. You're already utilizing the credits that you have to the maximum that's allowable. And so those are definitely the most flexible. So, you know, it varies based on the credits that you're bringing in, which concentrations you can choose, but those are definitely the most flexible. And I know some people are concerned about that degree specifically because, you know, it is an interdisciplinary major, but that's, you know, like I said before, it really depends on employer perception. And most of the time employers, they don't even know, they won't even know what that means. They just know you got a degree from WSU and that's all they're really interested in. And that's great. So it comes down to the marketing and the branding of your specific major and how you produce that on a resume and LinkedIn and while you're networking and in an interview. I have a group interview for grad school. Any tips on this format of interview? Begins with a group interview and then moves to individual interview. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of interviewing tips. I'm not sure where to get started with that. With a group interview, you know, you're approaching it the same way as an interview in terms of, I guess one of the little things is make sure when you're there to write down the names of the people that are interviewing you so you can send individual thank you notes to each specific person afterward. If there's someone that's helping you along the process too, of setting it up, some administrative professional, sending them a thank you note afterward is also really helpful. For graduate school, you know, like I said before, knowing some of, I don't know if research is specific to this, if it's a practitioner-based program or if it's a technology program or you know, what it is, but knowing the research interest ahead of time and being able to draw connections with your, if not experience, your interests and where you want to go is very important. Let's see what other kind of general interviewing things I can pull up for you here. I was looking at some interviewing materials earlier today as the Academic Success and Career Center. Helpful links section. On the left-hand side, it says helpful links. And on the right side, information packets, interviewing packet. So this is a really good resource to help prepare. Also, you can, if you'd like, you can send me some, if it's not, you know, within the next few days, we can set up a time to do a mock interview too. That is another way that I work with global campus students. And so a lot of this is going to talk about, you know, traditional interview questions and behavioral interview questions, how to prepare. So we're just researching the graduate program ahead of time, logistics, how to dress, what to avoid, specific types of interviews. So you'll have a panel interview, it sounds like, to start with. So respond directly to the person asking the question, maintain eye contact with other panel members intermittently. So that's very granular, obviously. Specific questions you might be asked using the STAR method. So this is how you develop responses to behavior-based interview questions. So sometimes it's also just SAR, sometimes situation and task kind of blend together. So if you see that someplace else, it's the same thing, but discussing the specific situation when you dealt with a similar issue at a different time. And it's usually, you know, discussing a group project or a specific academic achievement and, you know, a specific accomplishment, a specific challenge. So what it was, what your task was, what action you took to overcome it, and what the result was. After the interview, so about, you know, sending thank you notes, maybe asking additional follow-up questions, salary information, that'll be later and that won't be a part of the graduate school process, appropriate and inappropriate interview questions, Seeing what else. I know that, okay, sample questions. I know that was part of it. About the organization, about the position, infrastructure, advancement opportunities, professional development opportunities, benefits and compensations won't be relevant for you. And so questions that they might ask you and some questions you can ask them also. Education related interview questions. So what was your most rewarding college experience? What's the highest level of education you've completed? Trying to think of any others would be relevant here. So yeah, I mean, a lot of really good example questions. Trying to think if there's anything else here that I should specifically highlight. I don't think so. But yeah, that's a really good resource. And then if you're interested in a mock interview, follow up with me through email and we can definitely arrange a time to do that. My thoughts on the strategic communication degree. It is fairly new. Yeah. So I haven't worked with many StratCom students yet. I don't have a great grasp on how it specifically fits into the career development world, other than its application is definitely widespread to different industries that hire any kind of communication students. So yeah, I don't have too many impressions of it yet. It is new to me. I've only worked with a handful of students in StratCom. But let me see if there's a little bit more information I can provide to talk about any kind of intended career links. Corporate communication, social media, community and media relations, advertising, and PR. So PR firms and advertising agencies. Like I said, virtually all industries. So I was on the mark there. Yeah, so it is still fresh. It's still fresh to me. So I would agree with you on that one. Oh, so the career areas that are asking for very specific academic majors. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, okay. Thanks. We got there. Well, definitely accounting. Accounting is one of those that you really have to have accounting academic foundation in order to pursue. Definitely in technology. Well, actually, I should take that back about technology. That's not necessarily the case always. And even with accounting, you'll be in smaller markets where you'll have homegrown businesses, family businesses where somebody in the family is doing the accounting. They don't have any accounting experience. That's totally normal too. But with things like technology is so skill driven that as long as you know how to do, as long as you're proficient in whatever skill, be it software engineering or coding or whatever it is, you likely don't have to have an education. Something that someone like that often comes into a problem with later on is once they're mid-career, if they decided to stay in there, they might start hitting barriers based on lack of an undergraduate degree. And that's where distance education, accessible education is a great resource for those who are already established in their career and they need to finish a degree essentially to check a box for their company so that they can continue to advance. But there are always, for most instances, there are exceptions to the rule, and I'm sure there are for communication and marketing too. You're right, definitely right about nursing. You're not going to get into nursing without that academic preparation and accreditation. But yeah, thinking of the academic fields that we offer. Let me go over. Let's share that again. Take a look. Let's see if I'm anyone that I can think of here that. So with business, accounting would be the most relevant there. Management information systems, again, a blend of IT and management. So if someone has the skills and they have the work experience in management already, it's not necessarily tied to an academic foundation. Management, definitely not. Marketing, it's obviously it'd be harder to break in without that, but I'm sure there are exceptions to the rule most of the time. HD, Psych, Social Science, Sociology. So all those are CrimJ. Data analytics, again, you could get to as different careers with that. There's such a widespread, option just based on having that degree opens up so many doors and opportunities that, I'm sure there are others outside of nursing, but yeah, I'm having a hard time thinking of some. That's a great question. Okay, what about careers in newer areas such as social media marketing? Since it's so new, there seem to be no real rules on how to break into the industry. Oh no, I'm here. This is an AMA, bombard away. I think you partially answered it for me there. There is no true, there's no real long established way of doing that because they are so new. But like we just looked at the integrated strategic communications, that's something that I'm sure initially was designed to meet the needs of employers, to meet the needs of the market of industry. So, if someone has the experience with social media marketing, it's fairly easy for a company to be able to evaluate that because they're going to want to look at your social media history. And of course, that's a double-edged sword. So someone who knows if someone knows that that's something they've been interested in doing for a long time, hopefully they have had, an effective and a business-friendly, let's say, social media history that they can share. Essentially, it's going to work as a portfolio that someone shares with an employer. But now, as more academic programs are being onboarded to meet the needs of employers, like employers looking for social media marketing, that's going to be, it's going to start to become, a requirement more and more for specifications within the field. So right now, I'm sure, a marketing degree, a communications degree, an advertising degree, something like that would be sufficient for many companies looking for a social media marketer. But, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, if social media marketing is still as effective as it is now, they might be requiring people to have a social media marketing degree as those become, more relevant and more common, I should say. So yeah, that's a great question. I guess doing it with artifacts is a term they used to use a lot for interviewing and job searching. Being able to show your artifacts, your proof that you have the skills, that you can be an effective employee for a given company. That is how a lot of people break in. So obviously through networking, and then once they're able to actually get an interview with a decision maker, being able to show that they have those skills. Great question. Also, do you see more companies in the next few years waiving the academic major requirement in favor of experience, or are majors going to hold just as much weight in a few years as they do now? So my experience with employers is that, again, it's going to vary a lot from company to company and industry to industry, but in a very general sense, experience almost always trumps education. If you have, I guess the caveat is, if you are in a competitive candidacy situation where you're in a candidate pool and you're interviewing for a specific role, you have the experience. Say you have the experience and you don't have the education, and you're in the same pool with people. You don't know if they have the right amount of experience, more experience, less experience, and maybe they have that education. So, it's about, the purpose of education, one is for the sake of the individual to be educated and not to have, not to get someone a job. So, there's a philosophical way to look at the question too, is why am I pursuing higher education? So, I'm starting to rabbit hole a little bit on that, Mark, but the fact of the matter is it gives you a competitive advantage having that education compared to whoever you're competing with in a group, if you're all interviewing for the same position. So again, the most important part is that it does vary from employer to employer. But in my experience, talking with employers, they're really looking for experience. So when they're reviewing resumes, they're looking for experience. The experience section is what they're really going to be exploring more in detail than, that specific degree, that academic major that that person has, as long as they're, as long as that major meets the minimum requirements for what they're looking for. Experience usually has the upper hand. Good question. What would you suggest in regards to people in a field like real estate, for example, where they need certifications but no degree per se? Is it still worth it to go the extra step? Specifically for real estate, my experience, I know a few people in real estate, and most of them transitioned out of already being established in some area, usually business, into real estate. And I think most of the people I know, this is anecdotal, but they had undergraduate degrees. And let's see, I know a friend of mine recently kind of started through a family contact and got into their already established real estate company to work themselves up while getting their real estate license. So, specifically with real estate, it's hard for me to say just because I don't personally have a lot of experience with working with people who do work in the real estate world, but I know people who are developers, and not a lot of, I do know a few realtors too. So yeah, certifications, getting the license is the most important part there. And then, finding the right market geographically, obviously, and just trying to work with what's available to them in their market if they're not relocating. And I know one of the most important things is just knowing the area. So it is hard for me to say just because I don't have any personal experience, and it would just be anecdotal. But to me personally, the value of education goes beyond career. So it's one that I can't give you a great answer on that one. It's just a personal response. But good question. All right, I think that brings us to the end there. So thank you so much for joining. And if you do have any additional questions, any follow-up questions, be sure to reach out to me at cmiller66@wsu.edu, and we will go from there. All right, thanks a lot. Have a good night.